I caught my wife cheating, and it destroyed her marriage. As for her lover, I'm completely lost and don't know what to do. There were signs, but I ignored them. I was blinded by love, and could never have imagined this happening to me, especially with her, my wife, and my best friend of nearly 20 years. I work in another city, and wasn't supposed to come back until this evening. Tomorrow, we were supposed to go on a 2-day trip together. Things had been calm at work, so I came home yesterday afternoon. The trip was meant to give us some alone time after a busy summer filled with family and friends. When I pulled into my driveway, there was a truck I didn't recognize. Recently, a neighbor had asked me how I liked my new truck, but I thought he'd mix me up with someone else and brushed it off. The moment I saw that truck, a terrible feeling gripped me. I loved my wife and trusted her completely, but that sinking sensation wouldn't let go. I crept up to our bedroom window. It was open, and I heard them. As I got closer and peeked inside, my worst fears were confirmed. There they were, completely naked on my bed. I just walked away, fighting the urge to do something I'd regret. It's hard to even think about what's next for me. I drove to our family cabin and spent the night drinking everything I could find there. Today, I started driving back home to confront her but changed my mind. I'm not ready. All I feel is anger. All I can think about is violence. I'm not in the right state to face her. I went back to the cabin. I've got a 1.8-liter bottle of whiskey, and I've been staring at it for an hour. I want to get drunk and forget all of this, but I'm scared I'll get drunk and do something stupid. I know this is a critical moment in my life, and what I do in the next few days will shape everything that comes after. That's why I'm here. I need help. I'm not ready to talk to family or friends, so I'm turning to strangers on the internet. Update: the amount of support and advice I've received is incredible. I even got emotional realizing how many caring people are willing to help a complete stranger. It's given me a bit of hope when I needed it most. The downside of all this support is that I can barely keep up with replying to everyone. So, I'll start with a huge thank you to everyone for your kind words and helpful advice. It really means a lot to me. I've noticed some recurring questions and comments, so I want to clarify a few things and give a small update. I'm feeling much better today. The pain is almost gone. I still feel like I've been punched in the gut, but otherwise, I'm starting to look forward. It's only been 2 days, so it feels strange. Is this the calm before the storm, or am I just surprisingly resilient? As for the questions and comments I've gotten, here are a few quick clarifications. We don't have kids. We were planning to start a family soon. We recently sold our house, and we're about to move closer to my job once the new owners take possession. I'm planning to thank my neighbor, subtly, the way he hinted at things. A lot of people asked about the signs I mentioned but ignored. Here are a few that come to mind. She was texting late at night, which wasn't like her. She started regularly going out with friends after work, which was unusual, but I was glad she was being more social. She had weekly yoga classes, but it turns out she wasn't paying for them because one of the instructors was her coworker, and she was helping with organizing and cleanup. I also thought she wasn't flexible enough for someone doing yoga. And fourth, calls from unknown numbers that hung up. We usually answer each other's phones if one's closer, and a few times, unknown numbers called her and hung up right after I picked up. We get a lot of spam calls, usually telemarketers or collectors looking for the number's previous owner, but these hang-ups were rare. When my brother showed up, we had a long, serious talk. He's always been my real best friend, and I realized I need to remember that and know he'll always be there for me, no judgment, just like I've been there for him. He keeps showing me what true friendship looks like, even if we argue sometimes. Since I was supposed to be home last night, I decided to reply to my wife's message. At work, we're not allowed to use our phones, so it made sense that I could only text her. She knows I can sneak a few messages. I told her I had to go to one of my company's remote sites and wouldn't be able to call her until the weekend was over. I said I'd cancel all the bookings and rebook later. She suggested she could take her best friend for the weekend to that romantic winery hotel I'd reserved. I knew she didn't mean the friend she wanted me to think of. I told her I'd already given the reservation to my brother and his wife since it was non-refundable, and they'd pay me back in a month. This morning, I canceled all the bookings except the romantic suite. My brother's coming with me instead. Luckily, the hotel let us switch the honeymoon suite for a room with separate beds. There's also a beautiful lake nearby with boat rentals, and my brother and I have been overdue for some time together. Not having to text or talk to her for a few days takes some stress off and gives me more time to think. Right now, I'm leaning toward divorce. Honestly, I don't see another way out. My brother supports me but suggested taking a couple of weeks to pause and talk to someone. His wife knows a family counselor who's willing to speak with me on Monday. I don't think it'll change my mind, but at least it might help untangle the chaos in my head. I also took some commenters' advice and started consulting with lawyers, just to prepare for what feels inevitable. I want to do this smart. I never thought of her as someone who'd try to screw me over, but she cheated, so I figure I need to be ready for anything. I'm going to try my best to enjoy this weekend. Second update. A lot has happened in the last few days. I'll start with the less incident, slightly less important stuff. My brother and I drove almost 5 hours to the Vineyard Hotel. I really appreciate him being there for me during this. It felt like a heart-to-heart that genuinely helped clear my head after I spent most of the drive venting. I wanted some time alone, so Matt went to dinner while I stayed in the room. He ate and brought me back some food. He also managed to rent a boat for the next day. On Saturday, we went fishing. The hotel owner knew about our plans and was kind enough to pack us a small cooler with food and drinks, a nice way to adapt the romantic package for two brothers. The fishing didn't go well. We both caught a couple of trout, but they were too small, so we had to release them. The hotel snacks came in handy. We finished fishing by noon, then drove around to wineries and fruit stands, buying food and cases of wine for Matt's wife, Jen. That evening, we went for the biggest tomahawk steak we could find. On Sunday, we drove back to Matt's place. He lives in a neighboring city, about an hour from my house. When we got there, Jen was home, and we all opened a bottle of chilled white wine together. That officially marked the end of my weekend. Jen told me that while we were away, she kept an eye on my wife. She said that man was at my house Friday night into the early hours. On Saturday morning, Jen drove by just as he was leaving. She followed him to his apartment and figured out where he lives. My wife stayed at his place Saturday night, right around the time she was texting me love messages and saying she missed me. Jen spent half her time visiting relatives in my city and the other half watching my wife. She mentioned she accidentally caught my wife leaving his apartment Sunday morning and snapped some photos of them hugging and kissing before getting into a car. I don't want to see those pictures. That was the final straw for me. I don't think I'll ever trust her again. If she can flip so easily, telling me she loves me while she's with another man, I don't see a future for us. Still, I decided not to make rash decisions based on emotions. I need to stay calm and clear-headed. That's when Jen mentioned Sharon was coming over for dinner. Sharon's the counselor Jen found for me. To clarify, she's never met my wife, and this was my first time meeting her. Sharon turned out to be a really nice person, and we hit it off. After dinner, she and I took a walk around Matt's neighborhood to walk the dogs and talk privately. Sharon was incredibly helpful. She listened well, and made me feel like I didn't have to keep my guard up all the time. It was pretty therapeutic. Even though I'm comfortable with my brother, this was different, and I really needed it. It's the same reason I like sharing all this with you. It's a way to vent that helps me untangle the mess in my head. Our walk lasted about an hour, and the only real advice Sharon gave me was not to put off talking to my wife. She said the longer I wait, the harder it'll be to confront her. She pointed out that clarity is what I need most right now, and my wife's the only one who can give it to me. Later that night, Jen and Matt offered to let me stay with them as long as I needed. I know Matt, and I have a limit to how long we can live together without getting on each other's nerves. So I talked to my boss, who arranged company housing for me. I used to stay there every other week, but I'd leave on weekends. He worked it out, so I can stay there for a few months if needed. I decided to schedule another meeting with Sharon this week since I found our walk so helpful for a first session. She agreed. Sunday night, I spent time lying in bed, thinking about how to approach this conversation. It was tough because even imaginary scenarios in my head made me angry and sad. I decided I'd wing it. I usually handle pressure well. Yesterday, I woke up, said goodbye to Matt and Jen, and drove home. On the way, I wondered what I'd do if he was there when I arrived. Then I realized that would probably send me back into the rage I felt a few days ago. I decided to just drive by the house first. Neither his truck nor my wife's car was there. I went inside and grabbed the essentials I didn't want to part with, mostly photos and old family heirlooms. I packed them into my car and drove to the guy's apartment. Her car wasn't there, but his truck was. I texted her to ask where she was. She said she was grocery shopping. I trust her so little now that I drove by the store to confirm she was actually there. I hate admitting it, but my trust is shattered, and it's the only way I can be sure of anything. I texted her again and told her to just come home because we needed to talk. She asked what was wrong. I said she needed to be ready for an honest conversation and turned off my phone. She got home 15 minutes later. When she walked in, she came over to hug and kiss me like she always does, but I turned away. She asked again what was wrong, and I told her she needed to start being honest with me. She acted confused and said she didn't know what I meant. I said, "Fine, if you can't be honest, I'm leaving." She started to panic and said, "Are you talking about yoga?" I figured that was a start, so I asked what she meant. She admitted she hadn't been going to yoga. Here's a summary of the rest of the conversation. "If you weren't at yoga, where were you?" "I was walking to unwind because I've been really stressed lately." "Why were you stressed? And why did you lie about what you were doing?" "The move was stressing me out, and I didn't know how to tell you." "So you decided to lie? Why couldn't you just say you were walking to de-stress?" "I didn't want to lie. I was afraid my stress would stress you out too." "But I'm not stressed." "I think you're not telling me the full truth." "What do you mean?" "I think you're lying about more than just missing yoga. Be honest, did you lie to me again? This isn't going to work." "I don't know what else to say." "Are you talking about last weekend when you went drinking with friends and came back late? Is that really what you did that night, or was that a lie too?" "I did go drinking that night, but yeah, I wasn't with the best friend I said I was with." "Who were you with then?" "No one. I was just drinking alone." "Now you're drinking alone?" "Yeah, maybe I have a problem." "Can we talk about this later? This is your last chance. Be honest, or I'm leaving." I don't know what else to say." "Okay, I'm leaving." At that moment, I stood up and left. Usually, when we argue, I take the car and drive off to be alone for a bit. She probably thought it was the same this time, but then she realized I'd taken my clothes, toiletries, and Xbox with me. That's when she started calling me nonstop. I told her I'd given her a chance to be honest, but she didn't take it, so I had nothing more to say. She begged and pleaded for me to come home so we could talk in person, saying she had no idea why I was so upset or what she'd done, in my opinion. She kept repeating that she loved me and would never hurt me. It was painful just hearing her say it. Those words felt like they were carving a fresh wound. I used to believe those comforting words without question. Now, they'd turned into a dull, jagged knife tearing my heart apart in the most devastating way. I couldn't take it, so I hung up. She called back about 40 times before I was ready to answer again. This time, she asked, "Did you talk to Karen?" Her best friend. I asked why she'd think that, and she said, "Come home. I don't want to do this over the phone." I agreed. I drove around a bit more to calm my racing heart, then headed back home. The conversation went like this. "So, I take it you talked to Karen?" "No, well, a few weeks ago while you were at work. We went out for drinks. A couple of guys started buying us rounds, and we just played along. When we were leaving, one of them tried to kiss me. I pulled away right away and told him I was married. I felt awful about it. I wanted to tell you, but I'm an idiot and decided to hide it from you instead. Karen hooked up with the other guy and gave his friend my number without my permission. He's texted me a few times since, but I never responded. Can I see your phone?" "Yeah." She showed me her phone, and it was completely empty, just my text and one from her mom. She never deletes her messages, so that was new. I checked her photos, nothing there either. But then I looked in the deleted folder and found a picture of some guy I didn't know. "Who's this?" "That's the guy who tried to kiss me." "Why'd you take his picture?" "Just stupidity." "That's not a reason." "Why'd you take his picture?" "I don't know." "Is that all you want to tell me, or is there more?" "That's all I can remember." I walked out again. I didn't want her drip-feeding me the truth. I got in my pickup and drove off. She ran outside, trying to stop me, but I was already out of reach. I went to a nearby park, sat on the tailgate of my truck, ate my lunch, and tried to figure out what to do next. While I was sitting there, other moments I should have paid attention to started popping into my head. For example, one time I worked a weekend shift and went to bed early. My wife went clubbing with some friends. I woke up at 4 a.m., and she still wasn't home. I called her a few times, but she didn't answer. About half an hour later, she called back and asked me to pick her up. When I got her, she said they tried to get a taxi but couldn't, so a couple of guys her friend knew offered them a ride. But first, the guys wanted to stop by their place. When they got there, her married friend went into a room with one of them. My wife said she looked for her for a while, but eventually gave up and just drank in the kitchen with their roommates while waiting. She claimed she didn't hear her phone when I called. We fought about it, and she said she was disgusted by her friend's behavior and decided to cut her off. I thought that was the end of it. Another time, she went to a friend's place in another city for a planned girls' night, for women drinking and watching movies in pajamas, or so she told me. Then she called me around 1 a.m. to say goodnight. We talked for about 20 minutes. She kept saying what a great girls' night they were having, but then I heard a man's voice in the background. I asked who it was. At first, she denied hearing it, but then it happened again louder. She couldn't deny it and said, "Oh yeah, X brought a couple of guys over. Everyone's pretty annoyed about it." She was drunk and 3 hours away from me. I had no choice but to trust her. We fought about that too. I was upset she didn't tell me right away that they weren't alone. She promised she'd never put herself in that kind of situation again. Obviously, that promise was a lie. After replaying all these incidents and our conversations about them, I decided to give her one last chance. I turned my phone back on, and it rang almost immediately. I answered. She was screaming, begging me to come home. I drove back. When I walked in, she rushed at me, sobbing. She sat on the couch, repeating, I'm sorry, over and over. She asked, "What are you apologizing for?" She started rocking back and forth like she was losing it. It took her 5 minutes to catch her breath and finally speak. I lied about that guy who tried to kiss me. Okay, tell me what happened. The four of us actually went back to his place that night. We were messing around. I knew it was more than just messing around, but even hearing that made me dizzy. It felt like the room was closing in, and a million voices were shouting in my ears. I think I had a panic attack. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face to pull myself together. What did you do? Do you really want me to tell you? Yes. He fingered me, and I went down on him. That's it. That's it? I'm not playing this game anymore. Either you tell me everything right now, or this is the last time we talk. She started sobbing again, and after a few more minutes, she managed to speak. We met up again and got intimate. I'm so sorry. I love you. I'll do anything to fix this. It was just that one time. If I tell you the truth, please give me a chance to make it right. Please. I'll think about it. It was an affair. We were seeing each other while you were away for work. It went on for almost a month. Then she added that this man is married and they're planning to divorce. Does he know you're married? Yes. If he's cheating because his marriage is falling apart, does that mean you think our marriage is falling apart too? Is that what you told him? No, I don't think our marriage is falling apart. I'm such an idiot. I hate myself. Please don't leave me. I can fix this however you want. If you were in my shoes, or even his wife's, what would you want to fix this? To know the truth. To be sure I'm trustworthy. Can I trust you? I messed up, but I won't again. If I were his wife, I'd want to know the truth. Yes. Then fix it. You want me to call her? If you think that's what you'd want. She tried calling, but there was no answer. A few minutes later, her phone rang. The caller ID said, Karen from work. She looked shocked, so I immediately knew it wasn't Karen. Is that him? Yes. I picked up. Like a coward, he said. Oh, I think I dialed the wrong number. No, I replied. This is the husband of the woman you've been cheating with. I'm going to let her talk to you because she has something to say. I handed the phone to my wife. I told him everything, she said. He knows the full truth. It's over between us. It was just a fling, and you should never contact me again. I took the phone back before she hung up. Which divorce lawyer are you hiring? I'm getting divorced. Oh, but didn't you tell my wife you're divorcing? No. Okay, then can I talk to your wife? I think she deserves to know about this as much as I did. Please, man, I didn't know she was married. Don't ruin my marriage over a mistake. You ruined mine over a mistake. It's only fair I tell your wife. Please don't. She's at work right now. I'll tell her everything when she gets home, I swear. Fine, you do that. I hung up. I asked my wife if she knew where his wife worked and her name. She did. I told her to call there and ask for her. She got through and asked her to sit down. The woman said she was about to leave and would call back from her car. She did. His wife? What's going on? My wife. I have something awful to tell you, and I don't want you to crash because of it. Please don't drive. Oh God, did something happen to him? No, he's at home. I just want you to know that he and I had an affair for a month. I'm confessing everything to my husband now, and I thought you deserved to know too. Silence for about a minute. Then she said, if this is some sick joke, I'll find out who you are, and hung up. Less than 10 minutes later, my wife got a text from Karen from work. Thanks, you just ruined my life. I grabbed the phone and replied, you ruined 4 lives and 2 marriages. Don't forget this is your fault, you jerk. For the next hour, My wife begged and pleaded with me to stay. She offered to go to couples therapy. She offered to never leave my side. She even offered intimacy. It was exactly what I expected, thanks to your comments. Then she said we should take that vacation, at her expense. We need time together, she explained. We need quality time, because my work schedule has pulled us apart. That was also exactly what I expected from her. She didn't expect me to tell her I'd already gone on that vacation. She didn't expect to hear I'd already signed up for therapy for myself. And she definitely didn't expect me to say I'd caught her with her lover in our bed. I don't think she had any idea I already had a place to stay. When I laid all this out, she collapsed on the floor sobbing. She started saying she didn't deserve to live. She told me I should kill her right then because she was too awful to be with anyone. This went on for a while. I stayed there for 4 hours, listening to her excuses, her attempts to hug me, hold me, or even offer to please me if I'd just stay and work it out. In the end, I called Karen and told her that her cheating friend was in a terrible state and that she should come check on her. Then I left. It's been almost a month since then. I haven't spoken to her. She's been calling and texting me the whole time. Her friends and family have too, each with their own argument or plea for sympathy. Her dad was the only one who texted me saying I should do what's best for me and that he'd always love me like a son, no matter what happens.